Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Racha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Knowing is Not Enough. Now, the inspiration for this lesson came from a couple of videos I was watching earlier. One being Elder Makama's video that he did, the recent one he just did, where he was sitting, looks like somewhere like downtown. You know, there were buses there. He was playing a video, and pretty much he was talking about, you know, the situation where he tried to go to the movies. You know, he said he usually does it every year, and he wasn't able to because he didn't have the Juice Crew card to get in. And pretty much that is the norm now. You know, that's, you know, pretty much taking hold of businesses across the world. And the inspiration for the title of the lesson came through a video I was watching from the brother Rama in the UK, you know, the head of the England camp, you know, where he was speaking about, I forget exactly what he was speaking about, but I remember him saying something about, you know, knowing that you're an Israelite or something along those lines. And I pretty much, you know, gave me the inspiration for the title, you know, Knowing is Not Enough. And pretty much building off of his video first, you know, the knowing is not enough is not just enough to know that you're an Israelite, because you have people in the world waking up today all over the planet knowing that they're Israelites. Some people before they woke up knew that they were Israelites, they just didn't know the full truth, and they're starting to learn it now. So that's not enough, you know, because the ones that are going to make it are not the ones that know that they're Israelites. It's the ones that are part of the elect that are actually being, you know, getting involved with the ministry in whatever, you know, fashion or whatever capacity the Lord gave them. You know, because there are different offices. Not everybody's going to be a prophet. Not everybody's going to be a teacher. Not everybody's going to be an apostle, so on and so forth. But whatever your office is, do that office to the best of your ability, you know. Push it to the limit, you know. That's a title right there, which is the name of a song. Push it to, I don't know if it's the name of the song or it's called, no, the lyric called, say, push it to the limit. But whatever your gift is, take that talent and spend it, you know. And knowing is not enough. We're going to go start off with the scripture here in James 1 and 21. It says, wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. And that engrafted word, which is able to save your souls, is talking about this knowledge. That's why it says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And it also says, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. And also give diligence to make your calling and election sure. So knowing is not enough. Remember that. You know, knowing that you're an Israelite is not enough. Knowing a brother that's a teacher that's out there working out his salvation is not enough. You have to be involved. You have to get involved. You have to do your part. No one can hold your hand. No, brothers can lead other brothers to the water, but they can't make them drink at the end of the day. You know, so you have to be the person responsible for whatever you have to go through, you know, and you have to build that relationship between yourself and Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai in the hopes that you are part of the elect, like we all are doing. So it goes on to say, but be ye doers of the word and not hearers only. See? Because you have those individuals out there that believe in their heart of hearts that just listening to the word, you know, and not doing anything about it, you know, is enough. That's not enough. It says, be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. Yeah, because if you're hearing, but you ain't doing, then you're deceiving yourself. And that's why it goes on to say, the Apostle James said, Shalaka, let me go back. It says, for if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, He is like unto a man beholding his natural face in the glass. Right? You looking in the mirror, you see what you look like, you see who you are. This is equivalent to finding out that you're an Israelite, waking up to the fact that you're an Israelite, seeing the men out there teaching, hearing the words, that are being spoken, listening to the breakdowns, getting the mysteries of the scriptures, right? It says, for he beholdeth himself and goeth his way. And then you turn and you go your own way. You do your thing. It says, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was, right? Because that the Israelite thing and the scriptures that you learn, they go right out the window, when you go and you go about your business, because you're not applying what you learn. To you, it's just entertainment. It's a source of learning. It's you might be the individual that been alienated in life, and this is a way for you to get back at the world. you know you know uh you might not be a ladies man, and this is your way of, yeah, fuck these hoes, yeah, that's right, yeah, fuck these hoes, man, fucking bitch, but you ain't doing nothing about it. Then or it could be, that this is your way of getting at Esau. Yeah, you fucking devils, man, yeah, man, but you ain't doing nothing about it. You're like that man beholding his face in the glass, in the looking glass, and then you go your way and forget what manner of man you are, because you ain't doing what the scriptures say to do. So knowing is not enough. It says, but whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. Because it's all about faith, but it's also about the works, which we're going to get that next, Lord's will. Let me see, there's a precept there, or doing. No, he's blessed in his deeds. Why? Because he not only heard, but he also did. He heard the word, he heard the voice of the Lord, he dropped what he was doing, and he followed that voice, and he did what that voice said. Like it says in our Revelation 14, they followed the Lamb whithersoever he went. Wherever that voice takes you, you got to follow. In the hopes, that we are the elect. So now, let's go to the second chapter and 17th verse. Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead being alone. Yea, a man may say, though thou hast faith, and I have works, show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. And that's the bottom line. The ultimate show of one's belief is in their actions, not in talk, because anybody could talk shit. It's in the actions. What do you do with what you learned? What have you done with what you learned? What have you done for the Lord lately? Are you out there teaching, or are you just one of those keyboard experts, keyboard warriors that hoop and holler on the computer, but then when it comes down to put in work, you ain't doing nothing but just running your mouth. The Lord don't need no bullshit talkers, no bullshit artists, no shit talking individuals. The Lord, needs workers. The harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray ye the Lord of the harvest that he send forth laborers into his vineyard, because there's a lot of work to do. So get involved. So it's not enough just knowing. Knowing is not enough. Because serious times are coming down the pike. And what you put into your spiritual bank account in these times is what's going to be a hedge for you in these times to come. The scriptures say, my servant shall eat. What is a servant? A servant is somebody that serves, somebody that ministers, a slave, yoke fellows, prisoners of Yahushai. So his prisoners, his servants, his slaves that have been slaving for his name, teaching the word, suffering, what they had to suffer, bearing the heat of the day, bearing the cold of the winter, so on and so forth, are going to be the ones that will be taken care of in these perilous times to come. You know, because building off of the lesson that Elder Malcolm did, you know, him not being able to go to the movies like he normally does every year, you know, because he doesn't have the Juice Crew card, shows that shows the austere measures that are going to come to this world. You know, now let's look up the word austere in the let's look up the word austere in the common dictionary, offline common dictionary, or all right, austere. These austere measures are coming. Austerity is here, but in a it's in a mild form right now. Austere, severely simple, which that's not what we're looking for, of a stern or strict bearing or demeanor, forbidding in aspect. That's good. That describes Yahweh Shai. Practicing great self denial. That didn't really go into too much, but synonyms are severe, stern, somber, rigid, cold. Because the scriptures say, because iniquity shall increase, the love of many shall wax cold. And that's what's coming, you know, that's what's coming down the pike. You know, so these restrictions are going to cause panic. They're going to cause desperation. And, you know, through the Spirit, I always speak on a desperate mind state. You know, when you go into desperation, your mind can't handle it. You know, especially when you've been, you know, when you've been used to having a comfortable life. You know, that's why, as the saying goes, hard, what is, how to go? Hard times make hard men, or no, hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make hard times. You know, so this society has catered, in the world since, has catered to, and has been catering to, ever since these nations been committing fornication with Babylon the Great, America, had been causing good times, easy times. So when a glitch comes in there, you know, an anomaly, you know, something that goes against the norm, the first thing that people do is go into desperation mode. Because in this world, you know, patience has been broken down, hasn't been taught, it hasn't been encouraged. Like you had this faggot, Jaden Smith, they had a commercial with him. He said, impatience is a virtue, or something along those lines, which shows you that they're pushing that the opposite of what should be. The virtues that you should have, they're pushing to have opposite virtues. You know, they're pushing, you know, the something different from the normal, or should I say something different than what should be. So like this guy's big mouth, you know. It says, so all that's going to happen is going to cause desperation, you know. And when the mind gets into a desperate state, all it can think about is getting back to the comfort zone that it once had. That's what they keep promising people. If you do this, if you do that, if you do this, then everything will go back to normal. But obviously, it's not going back there. It's just a way of getting the people to comply. But when the people don't comply fast enough, or when the people are not enough people are complying, then they have to go into more drastic measures. That's why the scriptures say that they shall speak as a dragon. Has two horns like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. Because eventually they're going to have to put their claws in. And I ain't talking about Santa Claus. I'm talking about Satan's claws. So desperate. A person who is frightened and in need of help. Arising from or marked by despair or loss of hope. See? And what they're doing right now with choking off the supply chain, people say, oh, there's short. There ain't no shortages. There ain't no shortages. There are plenty of supplies. What is happening is that there is a deliberate, stoppage of these goods, or a very slow trickle of these goods coming in. Because if you go to them ports, there's an abundance of supplies in those ports. So there's no shortages. But there's a deliberate choking off of the supplies coming in, because this is used as a tactic to make people comply. Remember, the juice works are nothing more than a precursor to the mark. And this is why everything is going digital. That's why they're trying to introduce something called, or they're introducing something called CBDC, central bank digital currency, because they want everything online. This is why they push all those different, digital based currency, what is that? UBI, is it? Universal Basic Income? They're pushing all of that because they know that people being desperate, they will accept anything, because ultimately they want to bring in the M to the A to the R to the K, which is the chip, the MOTB, because that's what they want to do. This is their agenda. And once they get that system implemented in place, then they have the world by the balls. Because there was an individual, not Russian, some German dude, brother had sent it to me, speaking about how they can't determine who spends $100 or $1,000 or whatever the case may be. But through this digital currency, they'll be able to track every transaction. You see? And that will bring in something known as the MOTB. Like you hear Apostle say Apocalipsis 13, you brothers that have been watching few sisters know what that is. That's where you find this M to the A to the R to the K. So it says, arising from or marked by despair or loss of hope, desperately determined, of persons dangerously reckless or violent, as from urgency or despair. Because when people get desperate, they get violent, they get aggressive, they get reckless. Because it's not about, how it is when everything is normal, and everything is in abundance. It's about survival. And most people are not taught survival. Most people do not know how to spell the word survival. Most people have never been in a situation to have to deal with survival, or have to have any type of skills to deal with any type, they really didn't have a want for, they may have wanted for other things, material things, but as far as food and shelter, clothing, things of that nature, they pretty much had that taken care of, or their life. In that aspect, they were in a comfort zone, so to speak. You may not have had you may not have had filet mignon or Don Perignon, you know what I'm saying? But you had something. You had your Z grade beef at the supermarket with some GMO potatoes and some wild Irish rose, but you had something. I'm being a little facetious with it, but the point is that you had something. But when you have nothing, that's where desperation comes into place. That's where recklessness comes into place. That's where violence comes into place. Why? Because they're going to be in a state of despair. They're going to be in a state of desperation. So when you get the people in that frenzy, it's easy for you to manipulate them and make them to do whatever it is that you want them to do. Let's look up the word manipulate. Manipulate, influence, or control shrewdly or deviously. That's why the scriptures say that they shall speak as a dragon. Because a dragon is known for what? For its fierceness. You know, as they call them, draconian measures, which are harsh measures for breaking even the least of the laws. Influence or control shrewdly or deviously. Hold something in one's hands and move it. Yeah, that's a manipulation. Tamper with the purpose of deception. And that's what they're doing. You know? So all of this that you see are just the wiles of the devil. You know, Esau, you know, pushing that on the world, because ultimately they want to bring in the MOTB. And pretty much that's why knowing is not enough. Because when they come in to implement what I'm about to read here, which we've gone over many times, and I know through the Spirit, I feel that we'll, you know, just knowing that the time that we're in there, we're going to go into it more and more until it's fully implemented or thereabouts. Revelation 13 and 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. You know, and that is an actual mark, an actual incision, an actual thing that's going to be inserted into people. And it will have everything that you have now on the computer, except it will be on that chip. And whatever is not on that chip is also can also be brought online, so that they can and online you could search more stuff that'll just have your basic information in it. Just like you have a computer. A computer has so much memory, whether it's a terabyte, whether it's 500 gigs, or whatever the case may be. And once that memory is full, what do you have to do? You have to get an external hard drive in order for you to put more information that you can still access through that computer. So that's exactly what they're doing with the chip. It has just enough info in it that they need. Criminal records, driving records, you know, just your history in general, where you live, places you've lived, your financial records, your medical, everything that they need. And if there's anything else that they need, guess what? They have access to go to a computer and get the rest, just based off of your numbers. So we look up that word M to the A to the R to the K. And what do we have? We have a word charagma. Now the word charagma is a stamp, an imprinted mark. When you make an imprinted mark, you're stamping into something. You're cutting into. Like you have a term called cuneiform. Cuneiform simply means wedge writing. Why is it called cuneiform? Because it's a cutting into. You know, whether it's stone, whether it's metal, whether it's clay, whatever the case may be. Just like you have the hieroglyphs or the hieroglyphics. What are those? Those are pictures that convey a message. But in order for you to have them pictures, I mean, they could be painted, but they carve them into stone to make them last longer. So this mark, charagma, is a cutting into for the purpose of putting in information to be able to connect the people to the web, World Wide Web, WWW 666. Everything that this man does is all centered around the number 6. All right. So it says, of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the anti-Messiah, which is, there's many anti-Messiahs, but just as a badge of the followers of this system, the ones that bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Now we look up the word badge. I'm just going in a regular common dictionary. The word badge is an emblem, a small piece of plastic or cloth or metal, that signifies your status, mark, or membership, or affiliation, etc. Now, when you watch that movie, I think it's called Out of Time. It's either In Time or Out of Time with Justin Timberlake, where they had to get, they were living day to day and they had to add more time to their clock, or else once the clock hit zero, they died. Well, you had different levels, because depending on your status, the higher your status, the higher your time, the longer you lived. That's why you had sections where people lived. You had section 10 and section 12 and section 1 and section 5. And each time you went to a section, depending on what number it was, you either were going into higher society or lower society. And this is what they want. They want a distinction between the super rich and the super poor. They want nothing else in the middle of that. That's why the middle class is being moved out of the way. Because the majority of those businesses that are going under are middle class businesses. Some mom and pop businesses, but some people have carved out a living for themselves based off of those middle class businesses. And they're well to do. They're well to do. But now with that moved out the way, they want the super poor and the super rich. So it says badge, an emblem, a small piece of plastic or cloth or metal, in this case in a glass tube, that signifies your status, rank, or membership, or affiliation, etc. Any feature that is regarded as a sign of status, a particular power or quality or rank, and that's pretty much it. It says insignia, pin, stamp. So pretty much what is a stamp? A stamp is when they stamp something, that's an approval. So when you give somebody an approval, that means that this person is good to go. So when you get that stamp, they'll say, okay, well, this person complied. They can move about in this system that we set up. But the ones that don't have the stamp, they cannot move about in this society, because this society is set up to control the masses. And if they don't comply, they must die. All right. So going back to the word charagma, we build off of that. There is a word, it says origin from the same as G5482, which doesn't say what that is, but let's go to it. The word is karax. They didn't have, the writing in it. Karax. And what is a karax? A karax is a pale or stake, a palisade. So you have, and then it also goes, it says pales between which earth, stones, trees, and timbers are heaped and packed together. So pretty much when you claim your stake, as they say, meaning you are claiming something that belongs to you. So when people take this mark, what they're doing is they're agreeing that the person that branding belongs to, they belong to them, because that's how you would brand animals, to know who was the owner of such and such, this, that, and the other. Because why, if that's not the case, then why is it that in the law it says if you see your neighbor's cow, drifting or whatever, the heifer or whatever, bullock or whatever the case is, how would you know to distinguish if that's your neighbor's or if somebody else or if it's one of yours? By the branding that went on it. And that's what they want to do. They want to brand people so that people can be perpetual slaves. So I looked at the word stake, S-T-A-K-E, in a regular dictionary. It says law, a right or legal share of something. See, a financial involvement with something. Because when you have land is usually when you're owning something, it's broken up into acres. So you have so many acres that belong to you, and in order for you to determine what your land is, they would put stakes at each of the 4 points or however many points there were, which would be like a wooden stick with a point at the end that you would drive into the ground that would uh, um, cut out, so to speak, for lack of better words, your belongings, you know? And that's what they're doing. So each one of those chips belong to the international bankers, whoever they may be, you know? Whoever they may be. And whoever it belonged to, that's who that particular slave belongs to. And that's why they want to do that, you know? And this is what the interview with Alex Jones and Aaron Russo was all about. He was telling Alex Jones about the interview or the meetings that he had with Nick Rockefeller, which all of a sudden he doesn't exist. You know, he doesn't exist, but everything that he spoke about, everything that Aaron Russo spoke about, has been done and is being done as of right now. So reading on number 2, a pole or stake set up to mark something as the start or end of a racetrack, you know, and in this case, property, because land is property, cattle is property, money is property, and people are property. Because one of the blessings we're going to get in the kingdom of heaven is the ownership of slaves. Right? It says instrument of execution consisting of a vertical post that a victim is tied to for burning, the money risked on a gamble, a strong wooden or metal post with a point at one end so it can be driven into the ground. And in this case, the driven part is going to be driven into somebody's hands. That's why you hear Elder Pastor always speak about the word graven in the book of Acts 17. I believe it's the 29th verse, which is the same word as karax. Now, those images that were graven were carved into. So somebody took a chisel or a carving tool with a hammer, and they cut into that thing to give it the different definitions and the different character, whatever the case may be, you know, and cutting into that piece of wood or into that rock or into that metal. And that's what this palisade or this karax is all about. It's the delivery system for the actual M to the A to the R to the K. And they show you that, you know? And they show you that, you know, when in all these different, with all these different videos that they have out there of people actually getting this chip and the way that this chip is delivered. Because what they're doing is they want to get this system in place fully to be able to stake their claim, gain their property, bring the people to their knees and bring the people to their will, because they're about to call in the loans. They're about to start, you know, inquiring about the money that's owed them, you know, because they want their money. They keep lending and keep lending and keep lending and keep lending and keep printing and keep printing and keep printing and keep printing and keep pumping and keep pumping and keep humping and dumping, you know, because it's all about control. It's all about debt. Debt brings control. Control brings slaves. Let's go to Proverbs 22 real quick. That's all they want. That's all they care about. They are greedy. They can never have enough. Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. And that's the bottom line. They're the creditors. The people are the borrowers. You see? And once you borrow so much and you can't pay it back, you become the collateral. You become the thing that they take in for payment. Because when you go to a bank, you get a bank loan. What do they need? What do they want for you? What do they ask you? Do you have collateral? Let's look that word collateral up. Do you have collateral? What is the purpose of them asking you for collateral? Because they want to they want to be reassured that if you can't pay this loan, that there's something that they can use to pay for the loan. That's what collateral is. Collateral, a security pledged for the repayment of a loan. So the people are the collateral. And we have a great example, with our forefather Joseph and what he did to the Egyptians. How they spent all their money during the famine, which this whole so-called this staged shortage is affecting mostly food, because you'll have plenty of crap coming in that people don't need, but food is the most important. So in Egypt, the main deciding factor was the famine, which made people take all of the money that they had to buy this food. And once they ran out of their money, then they went to their cattle, then they went to the land and to themselves, when they had nothing else to give as collateral. So building on that word collateral, a security pledge for the repayment of a loan. And that's pretty much it. It's a security. So the people of this world are a security. That's why when you're born, they first give you what? The birth certificate. Birth certificate, a certificate is ownership. And that certificate, or that birth certificate, gives the international banking families ownership of you, because we're no different than a box of oranges or a box of apples or a hand of bananas. Any commodity that you see being traded in the stock market, people are being traded in the stock market through birth certificates. That's why in the book of Revelation 18, it speaks about slaves and souls of men. And this whole banking system, the whole central bank setup of the FRN, the Federal Reserve, is all set up to enslave people, to trap people into such debt that they become debt slaves. And you can look up that term, debt slave. And this is what happened in Egypt, and this is what we're seeing happening right now. That's why they choking off the supplies, especially dealing with food. And if food gets out there, the food prices are going up, because of inflation, but also because of supply and demand. See, there's a difference between inflation and supply and demand. Because supply and demand, when the whole situation happened with back in 2020, the one thing that was happening was that you had a lot of things that you had toilet paper that you couldn't access, and one of the main things was alcohol. I'm not talking about the drinking alcohol. I'm talking about rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol, peroxides, things like that were hard to get. And what happened was you had supply and demand. So now you have a product that there's not enough of. So what do? They take it and they mark it up at a higher price, because they know that people want it and they can't get it. So they're willing to pay whatever price is set because they need to have that particular product. You see? And that's exactly what they're doing. So you have inflation, you have supply and demand, all based off of this chokehold they have on the supplies. And ultimately this to do what? To lead it into taking this M to the A to the R to the K, which we read charagma, we read charax, and then you also have grapho. Grapho, to write with reference to the form of the letters, to delineate or form letters on a tablet, parchment paper, or other material, like you have the engraving, the cutting into. To write with reference to the contents of the writing, to express in written characters, to commit to writing, things not to be forgotten, written down, record, because that's how they're recording things. That's why your information will be on the chip. But the way that they're delivering it is by what? By etching it or cutting into you, through the karax, which is the palisade, which is the needle, which delivers the delivery system, which is the M to the A to the R to the K, that chip, in the etching form, just like you take the tool or chisel or whatever to carve out something out of stone, out of wood, out of metal, or whatever the case may be. So everything is all in place. Now, let's go back to Apocalipsis 13, and let's read the next verse. And he says, and that no man might buy or sell. And this is the whole reason for this whole system. This is why the shutdowns came about. This is why the infrastructure was they wanted to make free passage for these different utility trucks around the world to be able to set up this 5G network. Because the 5G network is supposed to bring everything closer. There will be no dead spots. Because remember, they want control of the whole world. So in bringing that out, there won't be no dead spots. So that means wherever a person may be, they, the ones that are chipped, they will be able to be tracked. They'll be able to be, if you act a certain way, they can send a signal to, shut you down or to cause pain. You never know with these devils. These devils are devious. You don't understand the devilishness of these devils. So it says, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Yeah. So that's why the whole thing is set up upon commerce, because this is a commerce-driven world. Because they set the world up in a way that you have to go and buy everything. You have to be a consumer. Because they never taught the people how to grow for themselves, how to be independent, how to set up their own land, how to farm and how to plant, how to raise animals, and how to do certain things. Because they wanted everybody dependent. That's why they set up cities, these metropolises, mother cities, which make the average man weak. Because the man is supposed to be set up as a survivalist, with survival skills, to be able to know how to chop a tree down, to be able to know what plants and what plants to eat, what plants not to eat, how to plant stuff, how to hunt. You see? Because out in the woods, you don't got no McDonald's in the woods. You don't have no Burger King or Wendy's or Popeye's chicken in the wood. The only wood that you got only Popeye's the only wood that you could find that is in the hood. But in the actual woods out there, you ain't gonna find none of that. So you have to depend on your skills to be able to survive. And we don't have those. Majority of us don't have those kinds of skills. That's what the Lord said, that my servant shall eat. He said, because you have kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation that shall come upon all the world to try them. Now, you do have brothers out there, apostles, brothers that have survival skills, that know how to make hobo stoves and know how to kindle a fire, and then know how to do certain things to survive. But as a whole, we don't have those skills like that. And that's what these cities were all about. It was about setting up a place where the people will be complacent, will be reliant upon the government only. That way, when they wanted to implement something, the people were at the mercy of the government. That's why I said that he had two horns like a lamb, but he spake as a dragon. Right? So as we read on, it says, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And everywhere you turn, this man has that number. They have it in their patents. You heard Biden say, don't worry, if it takes 6 hours or 6 days or 6 weeks, we're going to get it done. Because they have an agenda, man. These things are not coincidence. Out of all the numbers he could have used, why couldn't he use one? If it takes 1 day or 1 week or 1 month, how come he couldn't use 10 or 5 or 7 or 4? Why 6? And then why 6 in consecutive 666? Why? Because this is the number of this man. This is the vibration he's pushing out there. Because this is what they want. Now, when you look up that word kai psi stigma, which that's 666 in the Greek, those 3 letters, kai psi stigma, all represent, the 660 and the 6. And then the 6, the last 6, which is stigma, is an actual pricking. When we go to the book of Galatians, chapter 6, and this is all done by design. Matter of fact, let me look up that word design in the Common Dictionary. Then let me bring this up real quick. Let me go to Galatians real quick so I can bring this up. Oh, damn. Hope I can. Shit. Yeah, I messed up. Just bear with me right quick. Okay, cool. Just let me get this precept real quick before I look up that word. I might forget the word, but if I do, then we'll just move on. Because right now the word is escaping me, but I'm just trying to find this scripture first to get this going. There was a word I was trying to look up. I can't really remember it. So just, if you brother remember the word, that's what I wanted to look up. You could put it in the comment section or in the on the live chat. So I just wanted to look that up real quick. I believe it started with a C. All right, if not, like I said, we'll move on. Design, the water, brothers. Design. All right, the word design. The act of working out the form of something, as by making a sketch or outline or plan. And that's the agenda, and it's by design. That's why everything has those numbers, tied into it somehow, some way. Now, when we go to the book of Galatians 6 and 17, it says, from henceforth, matter of fact, let me start at 16. And as many as walk according to this rule, because remember, there has to be action. Knowing is not enough. There has to be an action that has to be done with what you learn. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace be on them and mercy and upon the Israel of the Most High, because the Israel of the Most High are who? The elect of the nation of Israel. From henceforth, let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Yahushai. And Yahushai actually had marks. Now, the Apostle Paul was using it metaphorically for himself and the things that he went through, but the marks that Yahushua had were actual marks that were cut into his body. And when we look up that word mark or marks in that scripture in Galatians 6 is the word stigma, which is the last letter or the last number, should I say the last number in the 636, which is stigma. And the word stigma is a mark pricked in or branded upon the body to ancient Oriental. So there's something pricked in. That's why I don't understand these leaders of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites, that are saying that it's Christianity embargo, none of this crap, when it tells you exactly what it is when you go to that to the actual Greek words. Since can somebody say sell out? It says to ancient Oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bore the name or the stamp of their master or commander, branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to. Because at the end of the day, a slave or a soldier is the same thing. A slave is a slave, and a soldier is a slave also. Because a soldier did not have the ability to do whatever he wanted to. Because if the commander said do this and they say no, then they'll get locked up. They'll get penalized. So you're nothing more than a slave. So slaves and soldiers bore the name or the stamp of their master. And what is that stamp today? The chip. Or commander branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to. And that's what they're doing now. Because each one of those chips somehow, some way, is going to be identified to be owned by this particular, individual of the international bankers, or that one, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Gettys, the DuPonts, the Merovingians, the this, the that, the Van Dween and whatever. It says, and there was even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with the token of their gods. So then it goes down here, Strong's definition from a primary root, stizo, to stick, that is prick. A mark incised. What is an incision? A cut into or punched for recognition of ownership. Come on, man. How in the fuck can this be talking about some goddamn Christianity or some goddamn embargo or sleeping with white women? What the fuck is wrong with you guys, man? It says that is figuratively scar of service. So it's going to be a scar of a service. So they're going to know that, look, this person belongs to this person, and this person is a part of the new system because he was branded with the mark of his commander. Now let's go from there. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's Leviticus 15. Just bear with me 1 second. Right, Deuteronomy 15. I'll start at 16. And it shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because he loveth thee and thine house, because he is well with thee, meaning the Israelite servant, if he had a master and his time was up for him to leave, but he had a wife and children with that woman, and the woman was given to him by his master, and if a master gave you a wife, if you came in with a wife, you could leave with your wife. But if the master gave you a wife, the wife and the children belong to him. So if you wanted to be with that woman and with those children, you would have to do a particular procedure in order for you to be able to stay with that master. It said, then thou shalt take an awl and thrust it through his ear unto the door, and he shall be thy servant forever. And also unto thy maidservant thou shalt do likewise. So that is a representation of ownership. Now let's go to Leviticus let's look it up in the Hebrew. Leviticus 15. Oops. Leviticus 15. Let me see, what verse was that? That was 17, verse 17. All right, so the word there, Leviticus 15. Did I have the right scripture? Deuteronomy 15, my bad. I put Leviticus. Deuteronomy 15 and 17. Right? And you have the word all. All. Maratazai. Maratazai. All. Boring instrument. Now let's look up the word boring. All right, let's look up the word boring. B-O-R-I-N-G. Not boring when you're bored out of your mind, but boring as far as cutting into. And I know they're going to give because in English, this is a bastard tongue. Okay, well, beautiful. The very first one, boring. The act of drilling. And the awl looked like an ice pick. And it was designed to cut into. The act of drilling a hole in the earth in the hope of producing petroleum. See? So it's a tool used for boring or used for drilling. Now let's look up the word awl. It's spelled a little different when you look it up in the regular dictionary. It says a pointed tool for making surfaces or for punching small holes. And what was inserted? Well, back then you just punched a hole in the ear, and that represented servitude, everlasting servitude. But today, when they puncture that small hole, they're going to insert something to establish ownership. And that's what that's all about. And then when you look up the root word to the word all, ratazai, is to bore, pierce of the ear. It's a drilling. And that's what those what you call this do. They drill. So that stigma, or that 666, it all ties together when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And the Apostle Paul said that he bore in his body the marks of the Lord. Now, when we look up, I believe that's St. John, the 21st chapter. St. John, the 21st chapter. Actually, the 20th chapter. But before we read that, let's go to Leviticus 19:28. You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord. Now, let's look up that real quick. Leviticus 19 and 28 before we get to the other precept. Leviticus, okay. Leviticus 19 and 28. We're looking up the word print first. The word print is the word nathun, which is to give, bestow, grant, permit, to make, constitute, to be set, to be put upon. Print. All right. Goes into a whole lot. Then you have the word marks, which this marks here in Leviticus 19:20 is the Hebrew is synonymous with the Greek word charagma, and the word there is kwai, incision, imprintment, tattoo, mark, an incision or gash. See what you could do when you just look up certain words to get a better understanding. Now let's go to the book of St. John 20. And uh 20 and 24. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Yahushua came. The other disciples therefore said unto him, We have seen the Lord. But he said unto them, Except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. So pretty much those are actual marks. And after 8 days, again, his disciples were within, and Thomas with them. Then came Yahushua, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst. So he pretty much walked through the door, and the door was shut, and said, Peace be unto you. Then saith he to them, then saith he to Thomas, Reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither thy hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. So those are actual prints, right? Let's go to St. John 20. St. John 20. And I forgot what verse that was. Just bear with me. "25. So we look up the word print. Tupos. The mark of a stroke or blow. Print. A figure formed by a blow or impression of a figure or image of the image of the gods. Remember, we read about some devotees will stamp themselves in honor of their gods. Form. An example. You know, so there's different definitions, but the one we're looking for is the mark or stroke or blow print, a figure formed by a blow or impression of a figure or image of the image of the gods. So that's the cutting into the flesh, because Yahushua actually had those marks in his flesh. He had them in his feet also. So everything leads to a cutting into the flesh, dealing with this M to the A to the R to the K, you know, with the chip, the MOTB. The Apocalipsis 13 is identified, you know, with the M to the A to the R to the K, which is identified with the chip, which is thing inserted that is used a pail to cut into the flesh, being the ground that's going to be owned by the international banker families. And that's, you know, that's what they want. So that's why knowing is not enough, because you have to be involved in the work in order to be able to receive the benefits, you know, of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and the protection that's going to be given to the servants of the Lord for keeping his word, for keeping his will, because the whole world is going to be brought to the brink of insanity, starvation, desperation for them to accept this mark. But somehow, some way, the Lord said, because you have kept the words of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the earth to try them. You see? So that's why knowing is not enough. You have to be involved. Not the hearers of the word, but the doers of the word are the ones that will be justified. All right? So with that, I pray that you brothers and you few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.